sales. This morning, what we've got are 3 counties that currently do plant sales, and I know these are not the only 3 counties. Dr. Bumgarner and Melody Rose and myself actually visited a little bit about different counties that we could get to maybe give input on this particular topic. But what we ultimately decided to do was to identify 3 counties that, while they're having plant sales, go about those plant sales in a different variety, manners. And the first that we'll hear about is Madison County, who basically uses a lot of their home plants and their master gardeners dividing those plants and bringing those in to do their plant sale. Second is Lawrence County, Mr. Wendell Smith there, who a lot of you may not know, in my opinion, probably one of our better extension plant guys in the state of Tennessee. Really extensive background growing giant pumpkins and growing vegetables, and just has an extensive background in growing plants in Lawrence County, where he's the TSU ag agent down there. They basically start from scratch and grow a lot of stuff, and you see the image there in the middle with their greenhouse. And then Cumberland County, we're one that basically up until now has purchased all of our plants and just marked those plants up. And so I've got Miss Shalina Durcott and Mr. Ernie Woods, who basically take a lead in this. And I haven't noticed whether or not Bev Beers is on this morning. She may chime in with us too and talk a little bit that and add input to those. So with that, what we'll do is, as we move through these, we're going to, each of these groups will talk about some of the topics that we'll be discussing this morning, about where are they getting their plants and starting them, and where do you host your sale, what plants are sold, when the sale's held, costs, income, labor, and then some of the surveys. Just a few topics that each of our speakers will talk a little bit about their sales or give any information. And again, when they finish the section, I might give you a chance for 1 or 2 questions, so we won't drag it out. If we have more than that, we'll get to the very end of it, but we'll try and keep this concise to about an hour so it doesn't run too long. So with that, I will move right on into Madison County. I will relinquish the floor to Miss Celeste Scott, who's the agent out in West Tennessee, has an extraordinary master gardener program, a giant plant sale, probably of all of ours, maybe the biggest that I know that we have in terms of master gardener program. And I'll just turn it over to her and let her tell you all about Madison County's master gardener plants.
All right. Hey, y'all. I'm glad to be here today. I think I'm probably familiar with most of you who are on the call. I've done some of these, led some of these Zoom sessions before, so I hope I'm a familiar face to you. And yeah, so I just want to share with you a little bit about what we do here in Madison County. I'm going to try to cover some of these basic questions that Greg had introduced to us, and then of course allow time for you to ask questions, because I feel like that's really where we grow, a lot in our groups is by being able to ask questions and learn from what others do. So the first question is, where do we hold our plant sale? And that depends on who you ask. No, I'm just kidding. So we've had it in different places, just depending upon scheduling, and but we like to have it at the West Tennessee Research and Education Center, which is right here in Jackson, because historically our county Master Gardener plant sale has been held in conjunction with the plant sale that Jason Reeves holds there for the UT Gardens in Jackson. So they're separate sales, but they're happening at the same time. Does that make sense? So we've done it a few different ways. Before I came to Extension, the sales were together. Jason had to inventory all his plants because there was only one checkout, and then he'd do an ending inventory, and then we'd pay out what we owed him from, the net that came in there. That got a little confusing as our portion of the sale began to grow, and his did as well. So then, because of some construction issues, we had to host the sale here at our county office. one year while he simultaneously held the UT Garden plant sale at the Research Center outdoors. And that seemed to work pretty good also. People just went to that one and then came to ours, or started at ours and then went right over to his. And then last year we came back together. We were both at the Research Center, but we kept our sales separate. So UT Gardens had their own checkout process. Their sale was outdoors. Ours was inside the facility, and we had our own checkout process. So we've tried it lots of different ways. People keep coming, and they don't seem to care how we ask them to check out. So, so I don't know if that helps you at all in your planning, but that's how we've been doing ours. When do we hold our sale? We generally have it the first Saturday in May. I feel like that's usually pretty close to Mother's Day, so that allows us the opportunity to try to market plants or containers that we've made, handcrafted items that our Master Gardeners have brought. We try to market those to people to purchase those for Mother's Day gifts. You know, it's in a week, or, you know, a week or two from there, just depending on the year. Also, I feel like that's a good time because it's kind of like the opening season of plant shopping. I feel like all plant people know that. So if we weren't having a sale the first weekend in May, people would be going somewhere else and buying plants. And just because that's kind of like our marker, especially here in West Tennessee. It might be different over when you get some of the higher elevations. The growing season may not start that early, but we like to get a good jump on things here in West Tennessee. Next issue is, where do we get our plants? And Greg touched on this a little bit already. We grow our own plants. So as you can see here, this is pictures of our drop-off delivery day. We have a 2-day setup before the actual plant sale. People have an opportunity to bring their plants for 2 days. We have a team there who's labeling things, organizing things, getting them ready for the sale. And all of these plants are, I'll say that we do a wide range of plants. So we do herbaceous perennials, we do woody shrubs and small trees, fruits and vegetables. We've got a small crew of people who've started doing some seed starting at home and growing their annuals, some annuals and vegetables. We have very few annual flowers at all. It's just vegetables, really, is the only thing that we're looking at as far as annuals go. Everything else is going to be a woody or a perennial. And they take pride, you know, in being able to say that these plants have come from their garden. And that is really one of the main marketing tools that we use when we're trying to get the word out to the public, is that these are plants that are coming from gardens in this area. We know the plants are performing well. You know, they're currently being grown here, and folks can rely, you know, on those plants to perform. This is a picture of inside the Research Center. We use the big auditorium. They open up both doors, and we try to put things in sections. And, you know, I couldn't find as many good pictures as I thought I would when I started going back through my camera roll. I guess we all get caught up in the day and forget to take lots of photos. But we try to put things in sections just like you would if you were going to shop at a nursery. We've got a shade section. We have a sun section. We have a whole area for vegetables. We've got an area for fruits. We usually have a whole table for ferns. Sometimes have a whole table for hosta and Lenten rose. Those two plants, for whatever reason, in addition to the ferns, are super hot, and I feel like they're the ones we always run out of first. We have an area for vines. We have an area for herbs. We have an area for tropicals. And then this is a few shots of the UT Garden side of the sale that's going on outside. I just threw that in for good measure so you could kind of see what they're doing. So we have lots. We try to, you know, divide everything out into those areas, make things easily shoppable. Greg, if you could go back to the picture that we were just at, I'd like to point, if that's possible. I don't know. There we go. you can't see it. Well, you can see it a little bit right here, but we use underneath the bottom, the floor underneath the tables as kind of like an extra holding area, so that we're not taking up all the space on a table like with one plant. So say, because we don't know who's going to bring what. I mean, we just tell people, we try to challenge members to bring at least 20 plants. But that can be plants of their choosing. So whatever, they have to propagate or they feel comfortable growing. So we might end up with, 50 yarrow plants, and maybe we have, 30, cone flowers or something like that. And we don't want to take up an entire table and because then you're going to run out of surface area. So we use the tables as your point of sale, and underneath the tables as your backstock. And then we have people who go around during the sale who are refilling the tops of the tables, as we go on throughout the day. And that just allows all the plant material to be exposed, and for it not to be picked over quite as much, because you know how people will do that. You put everything you have out right at once, and then they pick over it, and then you don't have as good of a selection left over. So that's kind of another strategy that we take with that. Let's see what else. Another question that he wanted us to address was, what does it cost approximately to do our sale? On average, less than $400. We don't have to pay for rent for the site. We work well with our research center here, and they are gracious and allow us to use that room for meetings and events, such as the plant sale. So really, all we're spending money on are some basic, supplies, some labeling supplies, and printer ink cartridges. I would like to mention that we have a system. These are printable sticky labels, and I drew blue outlines around them just so you could see what I was talking about. They don't really have that blue on there, but we do have a template that we've created for making labels, and it makes it really easy for members to go on and fill their plant information out, and then we ask that they print those labels. And if they don't have the ability to print labels, they can send them to me, and I'll print them off here at the office, and I'll have this sheet ready for them when they bring their plants. They take this sticky label off, they put it on an index card, and it's stapled to a popsicle stick. And that is what we use to label every single one of our plants, so that they all look uniform and they all provide the same information about what that plant is, and what the care instructions are for that plant, sun, shade, blah, blah, blah. All that typical plant label information. We want that to be uniform across the board. So, and our members have done a great job over the past, I think we've been doing it that way for about 6 years, and they've really gotten used to it and are using that very well. And I think our shoppers appreciate it, because it, cuts down also on a lot of the customer service questions, that we have to address, because the information is right there on the labels. So, what else was I going to say? How much money does the plant sale generate for our organization? And, it varies from year to year, but on average, we profit approximately $10,000. Could be a little more or a little less, just depending on if it rains. That always kind of has a damper on turnout, what the weather's like, if there are any other major events going on that weekend. This is a neat picture. I had mentioned that we tried to edge in on that Mother's Day market, and these are some of the things that Master Gardeners bring. All these things are handmade. We've got some really gifted painters and artists in our group. Several make these handmade hypertufa leaf castings, essentially, and paint them. These are painted to have a really pretty natural look, but some are they paint them crazy with these neat, vibrant colors, and that can be really fun in the garden. These on the top left are gourds, dried gourds that have been painted and decorated, and they usually sell pretty well. One lady paints garden visors and watering cans, and just whatever random items someone might have laying around that we think could be repurposed into some kind of garden decoration, or tool in that fashion. She'll paint on it and make it, give it new life and make it look brand new. We have members who do stained glass. Last year, a big seller were these little stained glass bees and hummingbirds and butterflies that are on a long metal stick that you can just stick down in different places in the garden that catch light. We also have about 2 workshops a year to teach our members how to make hypertufa containers. And we ask that they make one for themselves and then one to donate to the plant sale. And they can either donate that, just the empty container, or they can go ahead and fill it up with plants if they'd like to. And we have one particular person that we put over that area who controls pricing on that. And if we get close, we're getting closer to the end of the sale and we still have containers left, we give her the freedom to start marking those down to try to move those. Generating some money is better than generating no money. So that is a strategy that we take during the sale. I'm going to move right along. That way you can ask any questions and we can let the other counties go. But a few more were, how is the money generated from the plant sale used to benefit our organization? And we do several things with these funds. One of the main things is that we fund high school scholarships for high school graduates. Initially, it was just high school graduates in Madison County. We've recently expanded that to counties that surround our counties because we have members who are from all of these surrounding counties. So we've expanded that. This year we offered, I think, 2 $2,000 scholarships and 2 that were $1,500. And like I said, that can change and vary just depending on how much we make. Also, we use those funds to support our official projects. If any of our ongoing group projects, need some funds to make some things happen, we use that for that as well. We oftentimes pay for guest speakers. Like in October, Michael Durr will be here speaking with us on October the 3rd for the fall plant sale. So he will speak twice and everyone's invited. So you're welcome to come and hang out with us. It's a free event. We open that to the public, and that's just a way that we are trying to reach out to our community and the public and share knowledge. So we fund those types of special guest speakers. And we also use those funds to supplement any type of like group travel or trips that we may take, as far as, paying a portion of a charter bus fees or something like that to make individual trip costs lower. So I think that kind of is, Greg, did I cover most of the stuff you wanted me to hit on? This is just a picture of happy customers. I just wanted to kind of show you what's going on with that.
Hey, Celeste, we've got one quick question to bounce over to you that came through the chat box.
Okay.
In terms of the soil, the media and pots and things like that, individuals are taking care of that as part of their plant donation. Is that a true statement?
That would be true, yes. And we do actually, I have a storage shed here at the office. And so we do tell people, save your pots. If you don't have anywhere to put them, or you don't think there's any way you're going to generate that many plants yourself, clean them out, bring them here to the office. I'll store those pots. And when we get closer to sale time and people are dividing things in the spring, they are more than welcome to come here and pick those pots up. We have a few members who do a large volume of plants. And in those situations, the organization funds their media. So whatever planting media they need, we will purchase that for them, because they're bringing, 400 and 500 plants a piece. So, yes, but other than that, it is up to the member to, take care of that.
Celeste, the only question I'd have, and we got to move on to Wendell, would be, what about plant inspection or certificates, so you're not shipping unhealthy plants and things like that?
That's true. So yes, we do. I apply for the license each year, and I'm awarded the license. That we don't have to pay for it. That's through the Tennessee Department of Agriculture. I just marked that it's educational. There have never been any issues. They know what we're doing. I guess technically a plant inspector could come to our cell that one day that we're having it, or those two, prep days, but no one ever has. We have people who are receiving those plants as the members are bringing them in, who are inspecting them for disease and or insects. Really, the only thing we've ever had issues with is sometimes there may be some plants from, one particular member who are, infested with aphids. I feel like aphids really has been the worst of anything that we've seen. And in those situations, we set those aside and we don't sell those plants. So ask them to pick them back up, or we just, discard of those ourselves. But that is just doing some self-monitoring, and but we are in line with the law. So I would suggest that you apply for the license through the Department of Agriculture.
Okay. So that's excellent. And I think everybody probably, if you listen, could have got some really good pointers for any plant sale that you might be doing in your county. Change gears now. We'll go to Lawrence County. And as I said a minute ago, Wendell Smith, great plant guy. I think they're growing all their own plants, but Rick, I'll let him tell you all the details and kind of what they do. Wendell, just tell me when you want me to change the slides or whatever, and I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Nice to be here, everyone. And so we've been doing this about 16 or 17 years now. And this was from the earlier sales, we started out 100% donated plants. People, our master gardeners, just raised them at home, and we all got together and had a day and sold it, and a few started dabbling in heirloom tomatoes, and so that got to be popular, and that evolved, as the sales will do, into kind of our main calling card. And then 10 or so years ago, Master Gardeners bought a nice Atlas greenhouse, not a big one, but nice enough, and it works really well. So we're producing all of our tomatoes and peppers and things right now. And we have it last Saturday in April, and have every year except one, and that just gets us right on the front end of the gardening, and theoretically past the last frost date, but we know how averages work. So it's worked out all right. We now it has evolved to we've got a crew that goes over to McMinnville to a large greenhouse spot and gets some flats, and they bump them up and divide them out to give us a little variety. So we've kind of expanded into that. We still grow most of those. We don't do any consignment. It's just all donated, and what some of them choose to go get over there at McMinnville and bump up, and then what we raise right here. And so we've had 30 some odd varieties of a few disease resistant hybrids and a lot of heirlooms and various colors, shapes, and sizes, and try to have some information on each of those sizes. We through donations, we sell every type of plant: annuals, perennials, vegetables, herbs, some woody trees and shrubs, etc. So we kind of cover every base right there. The donations, just whatever you have, and we try to look them over and make sure they're nice. Our sale now, as far as what it costs to put it on, they've kind of expanded and gotten bigger and bigger, and I'll make a comment about that as we go through here. But for our demographic and all, it's a pretty good size. We end up with a budget around $2,000 to $2,500, and we get some new supplies, and a lot of people bring in pots, and we have the pot washing work days and all that stuff. And But in doing our transplants, our seedling starting, and the hygiene is so important. We try to run with new things on that. We've got some heat mats out in the greenhouse, try to get some uniform germination, and that the master gardeners have provided. The plant sale, we end up netting about 2,500 or so usually, and use that for various projects. Master gardeners bought where that cold frame is in that picture actually is where our greenhouse is now. And if you saw the earlier slide there where folks are under a carport, that is now our main meeting room for community clubs, master gardener, 4-H after school clubs, and the master gardeners contributed several $1,000s to the finishing out of that room right there. We were always having to look for a meeting room, so that's one of the things they've done. We send some, there's the corner of that, Greg, thank you. That carport is now where some interviews are going on for an FCS agent as we speak. But that's worked out really good. We had work release guys lay the block, and so we were able to do that entire room with zero taxpayer dollars right there, between some donations from cattlemen and master gardeners and folks like that. Master Gardener Association is providing scholarships for, I think we're up to about 4 4-H'ers, potential 4-H'ers to junior camp there at Ridley in Columbia. And we started this last year with an ag scholarship for some high school graduates who are going to major in some facet of agriculture. And so that is a one we hope to keep going as we go through the years. And also they're fixing to donate. There's a botanical garden going in here in Lawrence County, and so they're making pretty good donation to that. I think about $2,500 that will occur this coming October. So that's kind of what we do with it. I've got a note down later on what to avoid, but I'll touch on that since attention deficit disorder is one of my strong suits. Don't have a reason to have the plant sale. We got in a spot several years ago, 10, 12 years ago or more. What are y'all doing with all this? Why do you need to do this? And at one point we said, well, we do some things with it. We did Habitat for Humanity at that time, but we weren't doing a whole lot of other things. And so it's nice to have a good goal and a reason for doing it, and something you can tell the general public about. So, but you'll evolve through all manner with the different folks that come and go in your organization. And it kind of is a constantly evolving thing. We've got a core of probably at least 2 dozen that are really active, and the new class each year, which I hold between January and the 1st of March, we try to get them very involved, and they usually pitch in and get pretty excited. It's a time to hang out and get to know everybody while you're, doing all this bumping up and sowing of seeds and things. So we try to get the new class to buy in as much as we can, and they generally do. Let's see, on to the educational component. We have done that variously through the years, and we start about 7. There's usually a bunch of folks lined up to come in, and we started having about 3 different educational components. Pretty good success sometimes. If it involved cooking and eating, we had big success. But sometimes it's so hectic and people are coming and going, and quite often we didn't have really good people paying attention there. So we have come in and out of the educational thing. Last year we didn't do much in the way of that. We have several years before with various success, things like cooking with herbs and tomato growing and drip irrigation for homeowners and things like that. So I don't know, it's hard to get everybody's attention. They want to get in there and get the plants before they're gone, and then they want to go plant them. So hadn't really been doing surveys that day because of the same thing. It gets pretty hectic, and you're going around and usually go from one question to another and see folks I hadn't seen since the last plant sale. I think to be successful, maybe finding a niche, and so we specialized in things that you just couldn't buy at the local nurseries and box stores and things early on, and then we went into the heirloom tomatoes, and that's kind of what we're our main calling card, and folks call up, and we try to keep the ones that are really in demand. And then my thoughts about it. To avoid at all costs, I don't know at all costs, but it's possible for us down here. We have some of them just want to get it bigger, and we're not sure why. There's a limit to the resources you have, and with our number of master gardeners, we kind of notice a little burnout. It's really intense, and then the sale's over. We've got some beds here and some things that we need to keep up, and folks kind of disappear. They haven't even been doing their own gardening because they've been here working on the plant sale a lot. And so I would just caution about getting it too monstrous. We've had a couple of big top tents, and then we have our greenhouse and use the cold frame to sell out of. And but it can get all encompassing and too big, and then you got a little burnout, and then folks disappear for a while. And so I would just keep it within reason, and that would just be one observation that I have had here. So any questions, I would open them up if there's anything I didn't touch on.
Well, that was excellent. And again, I think a little bit of difference, some good words of wisdom there. And I hope everybody's kind of getting notes on some of those things, pitfalls to avoid and things to think about. Wendell, I think you're exactly right. A lot of times we want bigger and bigger and bigger, and you make some great points there, and it really sounds like you've got a very successful year and or program there with the plant sale, and I had no idea you had been doing it that long. So it's pretty neat to hear that. So we'll transition. Natalie, were there any questions or anything?
Just a second. Let me look in the chat box here. One of the questions that we got was if you've ever had any other vendors selling, or if it's just been solely a Master Gardener event, Lawrence. Wendell.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. Not in the way of plants. We decided to let some other vendors who sold other ancillary items, show up, and that did fair. But as far as plants, we haven't had anybody, some craft items and some different things that we don't do. But as far as plants, it's just strictly what we can conjure up.
All right, that sounds good. One of my favorite things you said, Wendell, was the fact that it's good to know where this money is going so that you can communicate that to customers. And I think that's true for plant sales. It's true for all of our fundraising events, to have a goal, meet the goal, go do the work. Yeah.
I'd like to add something real quick before you move on. When he was talking about, do you have other vendors or people selling things? We have had our Daylily Society, our local Daylily Society, as well as our Iris Society in the past, I believe Iris as well, come and set up. Now, they're not in the sale room, and their plants don't get checked out with ours, but they, sometimes set a tent up outside in the parking lot or wherever, and offer some of their things for sale simultaneously, right? So we want to support all of the local people, around. We have many Master Gardeners who are members of those societies as well. So like that might be an idea. If you don't think that you have enough if you don't think your group could generate enough plant material, you feel like, we can do that enough to have a plant sale. Well, maybe invite some of these plant societies to come, and then maybe together you all could have enough.
Yeah, it has come to pass that our high school has a sale on the same day that we do, but they're doing a lot more annuals, and so we dabble in them some, but they're doing a lot more flowering annuals, and so we refer people over to them. It's not too far from us, but I would not be adverse to that's a good idea right there. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to Cumberland County. And again, I've got Shalena Durcott and Ernie Woods. They'll add in anything that I leave out. And if Bev's on here, she might inject a few things regarding our plant sale. We've not been doing of course, time flies. We've not been doing our plant sale that many years. But basically, we started the plant sale as a part of supporting the Discovery Garden, which now is a part of the UT Garden System. And we refer to it as the UT Gardens Crossville Plateau Discovery Garden. And so the images that you have there are basically some early year sales that we had outside of the main office there at the Ag Research Center there off Highway 70 in. So that's the Plateau Research and Education Center here in Crossville, or PREC, that you see up there. And so most all the money basically started out for mulch or plants or anything that we wanted to purchase that we thought could potentially help with the garden stuff. That's what that money was used for, and it's since been even broadened to where we can use it for staffing positions in the garden or anything. But all that money that we raise for that sale basically goes into the Discovery Garden. You can see the cost-wise, $6,400, $6,500 basically is what it cost us to put the sale on. And basically what we're doing, we purchase all the plants. Everything that we do, we're not growing anything. You know, we kind of, in the early years, and maybe we reinvestigate this just a little bit, but in the early years, you know, we're on the research center. So we didn't want to be bringing pests or invasives or different things like that onto the research center. So we just said, hey, we're going to go to reputable nurseries. We're going to let those people, you know, sell us plants. You know, they've got their plant inspection certificates and things like that. So, you know, we spend approximately $6,500 to purchase plants, but in the end, we generally profit somewhere around that $2,700, $2,800 range off those plant sales. Now, a couple of things that we go through, we typically purchase all of our plants in February. We set those plants to be delivered in March and or April. You see Ernie Woods, again, Ernie is the tip of the spear in our county when it comes to the plant sale. He's the guy that when they come in, he's checking all the plants out. He's watering those plants every single day. He's looking for any disease. So we've got one person consistently that's taking care of those plants from the time that they come in until we get those plants moved. The two main suppliers that we use, Mary's Greenhouse and PWP Nursery, which are, you know, in close proximity to here in Cumberland County, to supply all those plants for us. Now, last year was the first year that we had actually done a consignment with Payne's Nursery, which was right here on the edge of Cumberland and White counties. And that was an overwhelming success. And actually something that we will probably look to do here in the future to maybe even expand that consignment, because there we don't have the risk of growing the plants, you know, that they're bringing them in and consigning them. And so it was just very successful and something that without question. Now our consignment plants, those are primarily shrubs. And so we'll look at maybe expanding those on. Everybody's always wanting to know what do you buy, or how do you make the decisions of what plants to sell. One of the things that you know, we keep detailed records. One thing, and I know Dr. Baumgartner, she's always alluded to the attention of details by some of the master gardeners, particularly here in Cumberland County. And they keep an elaborate, detailed list of what they're purchasing, what sold, how many did we have left over. Now, fortunately, anything that's left over from our sales, we just incorporated into the garden. But ultimately, we don't want to be overspending to where we've got too many plants. There's only so much space that we can deal with. And so we try to be very detailed in what plants we're purchasing and really focusing on what plants sold well in last year's sale. And so the thing that those plants that don't sell, like this coming year, there'll be a number of those that we probably will either scale back or we may not sell at all. One interesting thing that we do here in the county is we have a no compete, and by no compete, we set our schedule plant sale later because we don't want to compete with vendors selling at our Master Gardener Flower and Garden Show, which is at the end of April. We also really don't price our stuff to undercut retail outlets. We visit with those retail outlets. We want to make certain that we have a great working relationship with them, that they know that we're not trying to lowball them in terms of pricing, that we're simply here to try and use this as a fundraiser. And I think that really has worked well to build a strong relationship with retail outlets here in our county selling plants, and them encouraging people to check our sales out. Some of the landscaping companies have even got to the point where they encourage people to check our sales out, for looking at plants. A couple of things that we've had in the past, we have the Friends of the Garden versus our public sales. And the Friends of the Garden are all those people that have a membership to the UT Garden system. And in the past, we've always allowed Friends of a Garden as a perk to come in and purchase plants. We've allowed them to come in a day early. So we had a 2-day sale. And on the first day, Friends of the Garden could come in and they could purchase plants on that day. And then with the second day, we'd have an open to the general public type sale, which works really, really good. But we've gotten to a point now that this particular past year, by the time that we got into the second day of the sale, there really wasn't a lot of the quality material still left. That a lot of we were basically sold out on the first day. And so we had some complaints about, the selection of plants and things like that. And so what we've really looked at doing this coming year is we're going to do all pre-orders for Friends of the Garden. So they will get the plant list of everything that we're purchasing early. We'll have all those prices for them. And so all those people that are Friends of the Garden can purchase those plants through us, still get the discount, get their UT Garden membership discount, but we're going to order their plants for them, and then we'll set those plants to the side to where they're not a part of our allotment of plants in there. Shalina and Ernie, if you want to jump in anytime, you can. I'll roll on, or you can make any comments at the end, whichever you prefer.
Okay. We can, either way. Do you want to chime in now, or do you want to wait till the end?
Go on.
Yeah, we can wait till the end, and I'll add
Okay.
notes that I've taken throughout and in preparation for the meeting, if that works okay for you.
Okay, sounds good. So I'll let them hear when I get to the last slide. I'm sure they'll have, again, both of those really tip of the spear, so they'll have some information to talk about and add in, and probably do a better job answering questions than I could. One thing we do, how much help is needing and buy-in for the Master Gardeners. We don't have any problem at all with buy-in, with people helping. And the images that I've got up there, kind of Nancy Christopherson up here in the corner. She was one of the original ones working with the plant sale and kind of took an integral part in it developing with her there seated beside her. Bev Beers Ann looking on, and Bev over here as well. Couple of new, obviously, Shalina down here as the garden coordinator, and then George Thompson down here in the bottom left corner. They basically serve as the committee that does the plant selection for us. They are the plant sale committee and do the yeoman's work of actually seeing that the plant sale comes off. I showed you Ernie there earlier. He would kind of be the de facto chairperson of that, and but that committee works together to look at what plants we need, purchasing the plants, getting those plants in, all the care and maintenance of the plant, and really kind of serve to set the garden sale up the day of the sale. On sale day, one thing we've had so much buy-in that sometimes we can have too many people wanting and trying to interact, and I guess that's a good issue to have. But I tell you, be really organized in terms of who's doing what, the time frame that people are needed. Are they floating around? One of the things, we've got some of our master gardeners, and I tell people all the time, I'm a trained animal scientist. I have master gardeners that know lots more about plant selection and things in certain situations than I do. And so they're floating through the crowd and giving advice and opinions and working with people to kind of help them along if there's questions. Now, the fact that we've purchased plants and they're coming from nurseries, most all those plants will have, the grower tag. So they tell you, we divide them out, sun, shade, perennial, annual. So we've got them all broke out in the different categories. But they also have the really nice tags that come with those that tell you a little bit more of the growing zones for those plants, the care of the plants, and things like that. This is just kind of an image of things that first, our sale, we generally sell the first weekend in May. If you noticed on some of those early pictures there that I first showed, it's always cold here on the plateau the first week of May. But that's kind of after our flower and garden show. There seems to be a high interest in plants, and it's really kind of, just then getting to a part where you'd probably want to put a lot of those plants in the ground. We print out all these flyers and distribute flyers around the county and tell people when the sale is. We use on the left there social media to really pump. Erin Fletcher, one of our master gardeners, she's a social media guru, and she's cranking out information. And so we do a really nice job of getting it advertised, getting the information out to the people and what those plants are. And so just I think a really nice job in terms of promoting. Let's see. Okay, survey and checkout. We've kind of got a, let me make certain I didn't. We've got kind of an organized checkout, and I'll show you here in just a second that we've got a receipt sheet, and actually we'll be moving this coming year. We'll use cash register receipts so people can take those with us. But we've also got our receipts to where we know how many were sold of what particular item, what size the item was, and information like that. When they're going through the checkout, we actually standing in line, we used iPads similar to what I've got here to do a web-based survey of everybody that purchased plants. And we've got Excel spreadsheet that we use those to go back and look at, why were they there? Probably the biggest thing that came out of the survey, and I've got the survey information from Jackson, from Knoxville, from Crossville. The number one thing that brings people to our sales and there really wasn't a close second, that's unique plants that can only be found at our sales. And so they're not going to buy the generic plants that are found everywhere, but they do like going and finding those unique plants. So as they're standing in line, it's a 4 or 5 question, very easy digital survey. We've got people that just hand them the iPad, they can punch the stuff on and then go on. We'll probably need, last year we had so many people coming through at one time that it did bog down just a little bit, and so probably in the future we may have to tweak that just to get people through a little bit more efficiently doing the surveys and checking those people out. And again, using, I think Shalina's purchased cash registered, so they'll get a cash register receipt for their purchase records. Talking about those records, there's just an example of the little card that we use in terms of the quantity, what the price was, that when they go to the cash receipt, we've got master gardeners that basically look in their basket, cart, wagon, whatever it is, total it up and give those to the cashier so they can kind of ring those purchases up. On the right is an example of the Excel spreadsheet that we have, and this is a multi-page Excel spreadsheet that has all the plants, the size, the cost, how many we purchased, really detailed records. And again, I think George Thompson goes back at the end. He'll look through how many were left over, check those off so we can begin making the plans for next year's sales. What sold well, what didn't sell well, what do we cut, what do we add, and things like that. The sale committee does a lot of research in terms of doing their research on what are the new plants, what are the new varieties, let's get this stuff in. And again, that's bared out in the survey results that we've seen, that's why people come to these garden sales to get those type plants. So very, very big in terms of record keeping, the surveying, making it very efficient in what we do. So with that, I know I've left some other stuff off. Shalina, Ernie, if you want to chime in there, I think there's a bunch of questions up there, but if there's anything I've left out or failed to discuss, you might want to cover it real quick.
You have something you want to add first?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to let Ernie go first since he started the sale and is, like you said, the chair over the plant sale committee and maintains the plants for us before the sales.
Well, one thing was our maintaining of the plants. We started out with too many people trying to take care of it. So what you want to do is have one person that's going to go out there and take care of the plants. If they can't make it, then get somebody else to come in. Because our biggest problem was I would go in and water, and one of them would come in and water right after me. And the first year we had a bunch of fungal diseases. We couldn't even sell the plants, so we had to throw away. And another thing too is our weather in May here, like Greg said, is not very good, and we had it directly outdoors in the grass. But it's nice for having a lot of room for the plants, but whenever it rained, we've had as little as 10 people come out in one day, and that was it. So now we've evolved into our outdoor classroom. It's really helped us a bunch.
Yeah, I think that was good, moving it. Initially, we moved it there because we were already anticipating there was a really significant chance of not only rain, but storms. And so up front, we were able to advertise that we had moved the location where it would be able to happen, you know, whether it rained or not. So I think that was good initially, letting everybody know it would be in a covered space, because we were already worried, what is attendance going to be like given the weather we're expecting. Hopefully, we're still going to continue to have it in the outdoor classroom now, but hopefully if we don't get a bunch of rain, we'll be able to expand that area and move tables and shrub sections outside of that space. Otherwise, we will have less, kind of like Celeste, what you did for your plant sale. We will, because we have an extra stock under the tables, but maybe just have a few plants of each and then keep our extra stock not even underneath the covered space at all. And definitely, this was the first year I don't know if you saw on the advertising that went in the Crossville Chronicle, it said select or some shrubs, minimal shrubs, and those were the smaller containers in the past that came just from Mary's greenhouse. Well, I've been here about a year and a half now, but I was able to build a relationship with Tony Payne, who owns Payne Nursery, that's local, and he was reluctant to try consignment because he hadn't had great success with that in the past. But we sold every single shrub with the exception of 4 shrubs that we did not sell that he sent here. So he made a great profit, and he is ecstatic. And so we will be able to expand and offer more shrubs this upcoming year. And in addition to that, I see that both of the other counties do a fall sale as well. I know Madison did. Lawrence, do you do a fall sale as well?
No, we have not. We've toyed with the idea, but have not so far.
Okay.
And actually, Shalina, the fall plant sale isn't really a Master Gardener plant sale. That is a UT Gardens fall plant sale. So Master Gardener volunteers, assist Jason with, running his sale, because it requires volunteers. So they do help him in that fashion. But all the plants at the fall plant sale are plants that he has purchased, bumped up, and raised, and he is selling to benefit the UT Gardens Jackson.
Okay, thank you. We are talking about expanding and offering a fall sale as well, or maybe focus more on herbaceous for the spring, and then I was thinking focus more where we could do more trees and shrubs for the fall sale. And then people had really been inquiring about, fruit trees or small fruits, which we have not had in the past. So that's something I do want to look into. Right now, a major change, as Greg mentioned, is part of the thing to alleviate, it kind of looking picked over for Saturday's public sale. I'm ecstatic to have the participation Master Gardeners, like they would purchase half the stuff, for the Friends of the Garden sale, which is great, but then you don't want it to look picked over for the general public to have the opportunity to come in. So I thought we could alleviate that by offering, not only they still get their 10%, but if you already know based on the plant list you can see, you want whole flats or, 10 or 12 of the same plant, and we still have plenty left over for other people to purchase from. So they get the opportunity to purchase that early. We'll go ahead and order that, and that would not interfere with what's available for the sale. And I did see the question about 1 or 2 day. We are changing it just to a 1-day sale, but instead of having that pre-sale the day before for Friends of the Garden, they would have the option wait earlier when they're still in the planning stage for their garden to order what they want based on the plants that we've selected. And like Greg mentioned, we select our plants. We begin, plant sale meetings start first of the year. And we've had our follow-up meeting right after the plant sale, but then we'll have another one and go back over those figures. What sold, what didn't sell, do we order more of this or less? What's the plan of the year? What's UT talking about? Or magazine articles, what are the big hot plants that people are talking about? Or I like to be mindful of the fact that we don't want to offer things that are so run-of-the-mill that you can go right down the road and pick up at a box store.
And also, when we have our meeting, or when we check our plants there, we go over, we check up on our plants to make sure that we're getting something that's going to be hardy for our area. Growing on the plateau is probably harder than anywhere else in Tennessee to grow anything. And we don't have a big selection here like most other places do, so we have to be very careful on what plants we get to make sure that people buy hardy plants here.
Yeah, and that's good. I know we haven't, I love the idea of opening it up where Master Gardeners can grow. And, we also talked about when we dig and divide plants in the garden to incorporate those into the plant sale. But I was already talking to Ernie earlier. I don't think we're at the capacity where we could do that exclusively, but it certainly would be an opportunity for additional profit since we're not having to put out any money to purchase plants. But I think adding plants, from the garden and from the Master Gardeners that could bring some into the sale would be helpful. because I'm blown away by your profits, Celeste. $10,000? That is insane. So is that largely on having the arts and crafts stuff that the Master Gardeners do?
No, it's just the sheer number of plants. So last year, we as people are bringing plants in, you know, we have a mark how many they brought so that we can have a general idea how many plants we started with. Remember how many thousand plants we had? It was over 2,000 plants. Right. It was over 2,000 plants. We had somewhere in between 2,000 and 3,000 individual plants that were brought by members. And, you know, we put good prices on them, but, you know, we don't give stuff away. We're not selling plants for $1. You know, if it's most of these are perennials that we're talking about, perennials, you know, marked at $4, $5, $6, depending on their size and how far along they are. So everything, it's not like all coneflowers are priced at $4. If some are small and some are nice and big, the big ones have a higher price on them. So things are priced individually. We sell out. We don't have any plants left because we don't have anywhere to put them. We don't have a greenhouse. We don't have a space at the research center. That's Jason's stuff. We don't infringe on that. So as we get closer to the end of the sale, it's only from 7 to 12. At about 11, we'll start marking things down. And I wanted to mention that ours is inside, but you can do this even outside if you just have like one of those megaphone things. But I kind of act as an MC throughout the sale, and I'll go around and feature individual plants and tell them about the plant, introduce the plant. Because most of them aren't in bloom. You know, perennials aren't in bloom. It's hard for them to know what they look like. So I'll just kind of feature a plant and get people really excited about it. And then all of a sudden there's people over there looking at that plant.
So you're the blue light special.
I'm the blue light special, right. Or if we're getting very low, so we only have like 3 of one plant left and we really want those to move. And it's 11 o'clock. I go over there, I feature it, and I say, I'm marking it down $4 or, you know, $3 or whatever it is. And then people swoop over there and snatch it up. So I think that might be helpful and just to really educate. I mean, we have customer service people on the floor, master gardeners going around and helping, but sometimes when you can have that, you know, larger voice kind of featuring plants, that can help move things possibly.
Yeah, that, and then displays like the second day, that night, I mean, I revamped everything. Obviously you need to consolidate, but I turned like all the shrubs and started combining, you know, the perennials and shrubs and making displays so people would buy more combinations and not just shop for the individual plants. And then we added this year, talking about a lot of the things not being in bloom yet, added picture tags. I made cards that I laminated that we included with the plants that were not in bloom and would later have a really showy bloom. Because I still feel like whether it's the Master Gardener plant sale or people are shopping at the garden center, people are still after color. I was surprised that the trend last year was supposed to be full color, but that still was not what sold best at the plant sale. People were still after the bloom color. They didn't care about the trend or the foliage color until you can show them the combinations of plants. And like you said, upselling the plants to the customers.
There's a couple of things I wanted to pull out of the chat box. One, Greg, and maybe we just save this for a future time, but we've had some folks asking about the surveys, and I know that you've been using Google Forms. Maybe for 2020, that's something that we want to do our own Zoom session on and talk about some of those tools in local county groups.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind sharing that. I mean, it's an easy document that I can share with everyone. And if you want to use it, you know, Celeste, I told her what we were doing, and I think she's pulled that up. But you know, that spreadsheet. One thing I'm trying to do is use it for the gardens as a you know, total, but also you know, individualize each county to kind of help them out as to, you know, individual needs or what people in their community thought. So yeah, I'd be more than happy to share that information and work with you in terms of setting that up. You can do it paper style, but boy, the the digital version, Celeste, I'd say she'd agree, is pretty nice when it's all compiled out there and you can easily sort it out and they do all the work for you. So,
Yeah, it's
and I think we've eat up an hour, over an hour right now. So, probably need to wrap it up. I think, Natalie, you said us for an hour is what these meetings are supposed to be. So, with that, and if there's not any just more pressing questions, I'll turn it over to you to moderate it from here out.
Yeah, that sounds excellent. There was one question that I just wanted to go ahead and give Wendell, Celeste, and you guys a chance to. The topic of advertising was mentioned, and I know you talked about your Facebook page, so you've got some great folks. Are there any last minute notes about advertising that you want to share with folks before we close up?
We have a person on the committee who's in charge of like the advertising, and she gets it in all of these magazines, like the Tennessee. I'm trying to think of all of them. Like there's a Farm Bureau magazine, there's an Electric Cooperative magazine. They're all of you know I'm talking about, all those magazines.
Yeah.
And they have like event calendars, and it's free to apply to have your events put on there, but you just have to do it really early. So most of those want that information for things that are happening in May turned in by December or January. So you could look into doing that for your group, and they will be more than happy to add those to their calendars. Oh yeah, we have some local networking shows that I have some master gardeners come on as guests, and they allow them to have like a 5 to 10 minute like spot, and we just kind of do some promos and introductions on the plant sale and what's going to be offered, and kind of try to build up some hype. So those are things in it that we do in addition to what has already been mentioned.
Yeah, that's cool to kind of combine the digital with kind of some old school print that we still get a lot of traffic with.